it came up. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, hello world. Welcome to Collider Convo, where we chat with the innovative leaders driving the next wave of digital business solutions. My name is Ryan,
I'm Jacob.
and together we run Collider, where business leaders go to collaborate, get unstuck, and supercharge their digital strategy.
And Collider is powered by Altimetrik, a pure play data and digital engineering services company focused on business growth.
Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and visit collider.altimetric.com to learn how Collider and Altimetric can help catalyze your digital business strategy.
Absolutely. So today we are talking about Agile Mindfulness, and we have two very special guests. We've got Carol May, the head of Agile Transformation at Altimetrik. Hello, Carol.
Hi.
And we also have Elsa Simpson, systemic and agile people coach. Hi, Elsa.
Hello.
And Elsa, where are you tuning in? Where are you each tuning in from?
I'm actually tuning in from South Africa at the moment.
Amazing. And you, Carol?
Yeah.
I'm tuning in from Salt Lake City in Utah right now.
Beautiful. So we're around the world. I love it.
Yeah, because we are in downtown Detroit.
We're in downtown Detroit. Absolutely. So today, as I mentioned, we're talking about Agile Mindfulness. Agile is a bit of a ubiquitous buzzword these days, I think it's safe to say, with many organizations still struggling to effectively embody the methodology, particularly at scale. So today, we're speaking with two Agile experts who will dive into a specific methodology called Agile Mindfulness, exploring how organizations can shift their collective mindset in order to best align their business and technology teams to deliver the right products to the right customers at the right time. Agile is all about. So in order to do that, let's go ahead and turn it over to the experts. So we were hoping that each of you could share just a bit to kick things off. What is it about Agile that's particularly exciting for each of you?
Yeah, I'm very excited by Agile. I've been working in the Agile space for many years. Actually, my first introduction to Agile was in 2007, believe it or not. So very early days, very nascent. I've seen Agile evolve many times over to where it is today, and actually excited to see that organizations are actually now embracing Agile principles of being able to break their work down, collaborate across business and technology, and build it incrementally, get it out to the customer and deliver value way quicker and more frequently than they were able to do in the past. So it really excites me that an organization can be much more in touch with its customer because they're understanding the need of the customer and able to deliver into that need way more frequently and dynamically than they ever could do in the past.
Wow. Very cool. How about you, Elsa?
Yeah, I think what excites me, because I come from the people side of things, what excites me is that I think companies are way more in touch with the people that work there, not only the customers. So way back, I think it was 2012, Carol. we were
2013, yeah, Elsa, that's right.
Yeah, we were working together many years before that, even on big projects and all sorts of things. But then by that time, Carol phoned me again, say, come and help me with transformation that we're busy with, helping people change from a startup to into a very big, one of the biggest brands in the world. And these poor startup people did find it very difficult to adjust to this bureaucracy and all of that. So I jumped to come and help her. And when I got there, it was not only the transition from a startup to a big company. Simultaneously, it was also an agile transformation that they were doing. And that was the first time in my life that I heard about Agile. And so I landed there, and immediately they said, you actually need to integrate your stuff with the Agile methodology or the Agile frameworks. So I was quite nervous, but then actually so relieved when I start to know what this is all about. Because for the first time, working with the people in companies, for the first time from the business side or from the company side, they introduced me to a framework that actually embraced people. So that was actually such a relief for me, and I was just hooked from the very beginning that the business model actually supports what I truly believe in terms of people. You know, respecting people, empowering people to be their authentic selves, to really try and utilize everyone's strengths and gifts, and to really collaborate in teams that help each other rather than be in competition with each other, etc., etc. You know, so I was, as I say, hooked, relieved, and since then I'm and in the people side of Agile, never left it.
And so, if I'm hearing you correctly, Agile is about more than daily stand-ups and weekly sprints.
Absolutely. So I think from an organizational perspective, if we take COVID as our recent experience, we know that businesses have had to pivot. They've had to switch to a digital model pretty much overnight. And what does that mean for them? Two key things. If we look at that coin of what Elsa's talked about, the people on one side, we've pivoted to a work from home model in a large number of cases. And we switch to a model where organizations need to meet different demands from their customers. So how do we make those two things work? And Agile is the framework that, as Elsa said, brings together the people into a business model that then enables them to really able to deliver according to what the customer and needs are and bring value to the customer and likewise to the organization. So COVID was a great pivot for us. And as a result, we have seen the benefits of being more agile and adaptable as an organization, with a culture of people being able to be more flexible, more engaged, and actually more autonomous in the way that they work and how they do what they need to do. So when you bring all of that together, I think we're a part of a great revolution that's going on at the moment.
So then, ladies, do you think you can dive a little bit deeper into your specific approaches to agile transformation?
Yeah, let me kick that one off in terms of how at Altimetrik we would approach agile transformation with our clients. We take very much a holistic perspective. In the past, Agile has really been labeled more of what is technology doing in order to build solutions incrementally. We take a step back from that, and we want to look at it more from what is the business trying to achieve? What are the outcomes that the business is looking for? And how do we bring business and technology and stakeholders together? So we start by looking at where are we today? Doing sort of a discovery of the status quo. Where are the big challenges? Where are the hurdles? What's working? What's not working? And then where as an organization do you want to be? And what is that gap in the middle? And how do we navigate that gap by building a roadmap of what changes need to take place, both within business, within technology, across people, process, and tools. So looking at it very holistically. And then according to that roadmap, we look at how do we then find an area within the organization that is really a candidate for a pilot or a proof of concept, so that we can prove to the organization that by doing things a different way, by implementing some of these changes, this is what you can expect. And through that, we'll have lessons learned. And with those lessons learned, we can wrap those into a rollout strategy and then scale across the organization so that we can bring about the change in a very organized and disciplined way. But the people component is something that I think historically has been quite overlooked. that with such a transformation, there's been a focus on the technology and the tools and the process that we want people to follow, but not necessarily looking at the people component. And that's really, Elsa, perhaps you want to add some color into what we mean by the people component.
Yeah, usually Carol and her people go first, and the organization decide they want to go this way and what they want to do, etc., etc., and only then they sort of say, okay, but how do we get the people now to work within these new structures, these new ways of working, and so forth. So, when you want to change, usually, as Carol said, you need to understand what is the current state of the organization. Now, it's actually exactly the same with people. If you can understand the current mindset of the people, where they're actually at, then you can help them to change from there. And I think we have sort of a unique offering in being able to determine the current mindset of not only every individual involved, but also collectively as a team and the whole organization. To be able to see on a graph, on a one-pager, what is actually the current state, and then design a process from there.
Absolutely. So I want to dive into that in just a second. So first, Carol, you mentioned something I want to just ask you about. So in terms of the process, are you starting with the entire organization, or just for clarity, are you like starting within a team and then expanding across the organization?
We can go either way. It really depends on the client. But if we look at most organizations that we're working with, we start at an organizational level. So let me give you an example. Currently, we've been working over a 3-year period with one of the largest banks in the world. They've got a footprint across 91 countries globally. We're dealing with just one area of that organization, which alone is 11,000 team members. So starting with one team and working from the bottom up would be, it would just take years, right? So we've taken it the other way around, and we're working from the top down. So we started off, as I've said before, with a discovery, looking across the entire organization of those 11,000 people and understanding where are you today in terms of your agile practices? How mature are you? Where across people, process, and tools do you have gaps that need to be filled? And building a roadmap of activity in order to fill that gap. And then we picked a pilot area, a line of business, one of the smaller lines of business that was less dependent on its partners and other stakeholders. So it was more insular, more independent, more autonomous. And through that pilot, we then rolled out the first of the agile practices within their teams, and then scaled it to their teams of teams, and then scaled it to their leadership. So within one area, across the whole organization, within one area, we then worked from the bottom upwards, and we had huge lessons learned from that. Both in terms of the people, the process, and the tools, and then we came up with our larger scale plan for rollout across the organization.
Totally. And there you're describing, with a huge organization, curious if there's major, I imagine there's major differences, but is the process similar for a large corporation as it is for, say, like a growth stage startup, like Elsa was describing at the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, there are very common components to what we do, whether it's large scale or small scale. You have to cover all of the bases. Just the timeline and the engagement model may differ slightly or may differ to a huge extent, but essentially we're covering the same ground. So it's very important to keep in mind that triangle of people, process, and tools. We want to understand across that triangle where an organization is currently, and then very importantly, where they want to go. And based on what we know as experts within the industry, we can then take where they want to go, where they are, and guide in terms of getting to their business vision and better business outcomes.
Got it. That's great. And then just diving into a bit more detail about, because I'm really interested in the piece you're describing about assessing where the organization is today and where the people are today. Could you go into a bit more detail around, do you call that an assessment? Like what is that process, and how do you, just a bit more detail about what that looks like in practice?
Yeah, absolutely. So we call it an assessment within the Altimetrik stable, and it would cover really looking across business and across technology. We really, as I say, take that holistic view. But let's do the deep dive into the people component of it, because that's one of the areas of challenge and probably one of the key barriers to success. Because a lot of organizations know what they need to do in terms of changing process. They know what they need to do in terms of changing tools. They're experts within their domains. Where they struggle is, how do we change the culture of the organization to align with agile practices? And how do we bring the people along on this journey so that we've got better employee engagement, better employee satisfaction? That's the area that we see as one of the key sticking points. Perhaps, Elsa, you could just share with us some of the examples of clients that we've worked with where we've actually seen those barriers and how we've been able to bring them down through the work that we do.
Yeah. Perhaps I'll just recap that, just saying the approach is that from the people side of things, we also work literally from an individual level to a team level to an organizational level as well as an executive level. So it's important to understand that we work holistically with the whole system, and that all of that is interactive and integrated into a holistic, systematic approach. Yeah, so I'm going to start with the individual and then build it up with the individual example, and then we take it from there. So in a big organization where Carol and myself was also working together, the agile transformation was on its way and everything, and there was this one team it was really people with potential, and the team lead was actually this very enthusiastic, motivational, wonderful person. She could bring the team together, they could produce and everything, and then all of a sudden in this new world they fell behind and they got stuck, and no one did really understand what is happening there. So they've asked me to go and zoom in there and find out what is actually happening there. So first of all, I did the I did the assessment, the current state for her as an individual as well as the team. And when I started doing some coaching on her assessment, what we saw was, yes, she do have all these wonderful attributes of being able to lead a team, being able to collaborate, being able to actually inspire people doing things, and so forth. But the missing component of her awareness, her way of thinking, was actually that she didn't understand that she needed to pivot in a new direction, that she actually needed to explore and take risks into this new world and new ways of doing. They were just stuck in the old ways of doing, and it worked for them so well that they actually thought, if we just work harder in the way that we do, it will actually at the end work out. But as Carol said, in Agile, we work quite differently. And so at the end, they just got stuck. So when we opened, I call it sometimes a window of awareness. When they opened that window to understand, they need to pivot in a new direction that was challenging for them, that felt as if they're taking a lot of risks. and they need to explore and learn new ways of thinking and doing. Only then it actually became very exciting for them, and they could actually take the team in a new direction, and they was rewarded for it, and so forth. Yeah, so that's a story around an individual.
Elsa, that was a really cool example that you gave, because it talks about people changing their mindsets, right? Changing and getting uncomfortable, and that is a way to get unstuck. But speaking about changing your mind, let's talk about Agile Mindfulness. And when you think of that term, what is Agile Mindfulness all about to you guys or ladies?
Yeah, for me, I've got a one-liner, which really sums up that Agile Mindfulness is the alignment of behaviors with Agile principles and practices.
Mm.
Now, there's a lot more to it than that, but at the high level, that's what I see as shifting people's mindsets to align with Agile.
Mm.
Elsa,
Yeah.
I know you've got a lot of color to add to that.
Yeah, I have a few one-liners, but let me start with the first one. I take it one step back from Carol's one-liner and say, behavior actually follows awareness. So once you understand your own awareness and the context of it and where you need to shift it, your awareness will actually follow in that same direction.
That's great. And so I'm starting to understand when you're describing this assessment and highlighting for people even what their current mindset is, why that's such a necessary first step. Because if you don't have that mindfulness piece, how do you even know what needs to be fixed, if I'm understanding correctly? So while it's making sense, but it's also, I'm still trying to understand how it works in practice. Do you have like specific tools that you use that help to actually facilitate this, the awareness and the needed changes?
Yeah. So let me describe the tool quickly. It's in short, it's an online questionnaire that generates a radar graph. That's in short what it is.
Let me share it for you.
Okay, so this is an example of the radar graph with a few notes around it, but that's the essence of it.
This is the organic scorecard. That's the name of the tool?
The tool, yeah, organic scorecard. It started with a joke saying it's a scorecard, like there's so many scorecards in an organization, and they said this one is actually an organic scorecard, and then the name just sticks. So that's where it actually came from. So that has been generated by the questionnaires, and I sometimes use the metaphor of a lighthouse, saying that imagine yourself standing in the lighthouse with 12 different windows that can open on 3 different colors. And the 12 windows represent the 12 domains or the 12 directions that your thoughts can go to. Conscious and unconsciously, and I think that's an important thing. People sometimes are not actually aware where their thoughts and actually their life strategy actually goes to. So this scorecard or this graph then represents the 12 different domains on the circle. And then there's the 3 colors that can go into the 12 different directions. And from this, we can translate this into typical behavior that will follow this awareness.
Wow.
And because it's on this level of awareness, we find that people can't really game the test. Because the test don't ask about behavior. The test asks about ways, the way you think about stuff. And and therefore you get the mindset or the awareness of a person, and from there you can read what is the behavior that will follow. I'm going to tell you one of the case studies, a story of a team that I got involved to. And it was a CIO of quite a big company asking me to come and help again on a personal level. He was saying he's really struggling with his team and he doesn't know, is it his leadership style, is it the team, whatever. So we started off on a personal level, and I entered in a coaching process with him, doing his scorecard, and started coaching him. But quickly we decided we need to involve the team as well. So I did the different scorecards of the different team members. And what this tool then can do is also create a collective scorecard for the team collectively, where you then can read the collective strategy of this team. And then you can see whether this strategy actually go into the direction that the leader wants them to go. Remember, behavior follows awareness. And then if not, you actually need to start coaching the team as well as the leader and engage in this whole process. So the first scorecard we got from the collective team reflected his experience of the team. They were stuck. They worked in silos. They didn't want to engage. They didn't trust each other, and so forth. So then we started working with some of the individuals and the team collectively, but it was a very complex process. And then we had a aha moment saying, why don't we do some research saying, let's make a correlation from the people, the outliers, the people that just got it and were flying in this process, and a collective from the people that was stuck, and some of them even parted with the organization. So when we did that, all of a sudden, a very distinct pattern on both sides evolved. And quickly we saw that this can help us a lot. If we now understand how does a mindset on the scorecard look that would really support agile transformation and agile ways of working, and how would it look if it's stuck and would really struggle getting there. Now, that really helped the process tremendously. So then we could work towards this agile mindset scorecard. And I just want to say here, it's not as if one person has it all, but it's the awareness of what comes natural for you and what do you need to borrow from your team members, and how do you collaborate together to get to this. So what we found is if people are aware of it and willing to learn from it, to stretch, but also to collaborate with someone that has the stuff that they don't have, that's when it's actually working. So in this process, then, we continued in doing that. Some of the people then grew into this, and together they grew into this, and some could not and parted with the organization. And he brought in some new people, and it was really helpful to understand who are the people that you need to bring in to complement the others to get to this kind of mindset that would really really be helpful. So at the end of this process, the last correlation score that we did, I was quite nervous. Will it now show what we predicted? And we worked so hard on this thing, and yes, then it actually did show that collectively the team was now very close to this prototype of the agile mindset, and it was also reflected in their collaboration and what they delivered, and yeah, so that was a real success story.
Absolutely. So I'd love to dive into just a bit more specifics. You all have given some great examples. What are some of the common challenges that you see across organizations with regards to agile mindfulness and agile transformation?
Yeah, from an agile transformation perspective, one of the key challenges is around leadership. So our leadership engaged? Our leadership actually leading by example? Are they enabling an agile organization? Or have they simply delegated it to middle management to make happen? So through this process, typically Elsa and I would advocate that we start at the top of the tree. We start with the executive team, and we call it a pilot. And through that pilot, we take each of the executive members through their own individual scorecard and the subsequent coaching that comes out of it. And typically, I think 10 out of 10 times that we've done this, the executive leadership light bulb goes on. And through that, we're able to coach the executive leadership into what does Agile mean for your organization? And how are you going to make it work? And lead by example and support the teams through this change. And not only that, but the light bulb goes on so brightly that they then become the advocates for we have to roll this down into our teams. And you then start to get exactly the story that Elsa's just shared. The CIO went through the process himself. His light bulb went on. Yes, now we've got to involve the team. And when you get down to that team level, you start to really understand where the collective awareness is of the organization operating at the coalface and how you need to then shift it to get that better alignment between what leadership outcomes, the outcomes that leadership are looking for versus the execution within the teams. And then you start to get that strategy to execution alignment.
For folks tuning in who might be the CIO or the CTO of an organization, what types of challenges might they be experiencing where this type of approach should be something it's time to consider?
Do you want to go, Carol?
Okay, I'll go first. So one of the key challenges that we see across organizations is really that misalignment between strategy and execution. So leadership having gone through a process of defining a strategy, advocating agile transformation, but not really getting that engagement at the team level to deliver. So how do we bridge that gap between executive expectations and delivery? And that is really the biggest challenge that we see, is that misalignment, the gap between strategy and execution. And so the process that we follow for the Agile Mindfulness, where we can work with an individual and then collectively bring a team together and look at the awareness and the behaviors of a team, and then bring teams of teams scorecards together to look at how is an organization awareness and the behavior. means that we can work from the bottom up or the top down and start aligning that strategy to execution. That's really the biggest gap that we see across organizations.
Yeah, perhaps I can come in here with an example again. I think when you start doing this work, the transformation work, then there's sometimes bottlenecks. And the bottlenecks can be organizational, but a more invisible bottleneck can be a person. And I think that would be very helpful for CIOs to understand whether some of the people also being bottlenecks. So in another example, we were working, one of the quite senior people tend to be that at the end of the day. But when we started working there, he was this high tech person, but also a people person. So people actually liked him a lot. And he had a lot of loyalty in the organization, and people actually followed him. So it was very difficult to see that he's actually a bottleneck. But what actually happened, he didn't buy into the new strategy and he did not align to it. But he was sort of nice about it, and he had such a lot of good relationships going that the team also got stuck because they were following him and not the strategic leader. And once we could highlight that and gain insight in what was actually happening here, we first tried to coach him into aligning with the strategy, but eventually that didn't work, and he parted to do something that fitted him. But when he left, it was as if something just the cork just popped and the energy started flowing.
Super interesting.
So, lady, you alluded to this back when we were talking about the organic scorecard. How exactly do you measure the success for clients?
Yeah.
So let me start with something, and then you can follow on with the example again, right?
Yeah.
So if we look at the success, we really have to drive it back to what is the intent of the organization? What are the business outcomes that the organization is looking strategically to achieve? And are we meeting those? And as Elsa said, sometimes we're not meeting them because there's a people constraint, a bottleneck, right? Culturally, we're not aligned with the strategy. We may be in terms of our process and our tools. We spend a lot of time there, but culturally, we haven't evolved. So how do we measure that success? We measure it in terms of, at the highest level, are we strategically meeting the goals, right? And at the lowest level, what is our employee engagement look like? Right? Do we have happy people? And there's a whole range of metrics in between. But one of the interesting facts is Elsa and I were working at a very large financial services organization. We had operated the organic scorecard across the executive leadership. The CIO there became an absolute advocate and evangelist for the organic scorecard. It rolled out within the organization. And he actually kept metrics of team performance. So your typical metrics like predictability, velocity, cycle time, etc. And he was able to pinpoint every time that there was an organic scorecard, Agile Mindfulness intervention with a team, thereafter the metrics became more and more positive, right? So we can look at it subjectively, and mindfulness is a very subjective topic, but at the end of the day, we need to drill it back into very objective and empirical data so that we can see, are we moving in the right direction? So once we start to dial into the fact that we've conducted an organic scorecard intervention. We're now coaching, and we can start tracking the performance of the team and the teams within the organization to align back to those strategic goals.
Okay, so I think one of the great things about this tool and measurement is that you can do a pre and a post test. Every 6 months you can actually redo the test, but I prefer to do it actually once a year. So on an individual level, there's people that's done 7 of these, and then you can actually track your personal growth and see how you're growing, and that people find that very empowering, because it's also such a abstract thing. You work very hard towards your own growth, but you never see it in such a concrete way. But then you can also track the team or the organizational awareness and their strategy. So you do one in the beginning of the intervention, and then after a year you can do another one again, and then you can actually see the difference between the two and how it grew, and then you can see whether it grew into the right direction or not. Touch wood, luckily, but I would say 99%. Most of the time it grew, or some people stay the same. But yeah, then you also see that. But I think that is one of the great things, that you can quantify the growth. Yeah.
So in terms of actually helping people change their behavior, that piece sounds really challenging. So if I'm understanding correctly, that's where the coaching component comes into play. Yeah. It sounds like we could probably do a whole episode just on this. But at the highest level, what are some of the strategies? How do you coach people to effectively change their behavior in the way you're describing?
Yeah, so there's another one-liner to start with. The context is the norm. So there's no rights and wrongs when it comes to strategy, but if your context is telling you you need to pivot, you need to go into a new way of work, etc., and your scorecard shows that you like stability, you like to stabilize change, you like to build relationships and keep with the same group, etc., then you need to understand that in the context of your family, keeping everyone together, that's 100%. If you work in a different setting, that would be fine. But if you now work in an agile environment, this context, you need to fit your context to the norm. And so that's the first aha moment. And often people, I sometimes tell a story, I know a friend that's a farmer and work in a rural area. And he when it comes to town, you always get speed fines. So his wife told me that he drives, now in South Africa, 80 everywhere. Carol, I don't know what would be the equivalent of that. In the city, you need to drive 60 kilometers per hour, and on the highways, 120. You can translate that to the American setting. But that means that you have a default setting. If you drive one speed everywhere, if you use one life strategy everywhere, then sometimes people will kick your ass, and sometimes people will say slow down. You understand? You need to understand that you need to constantly read the current situation and the context to know what you need to do, and that you need to change your strategy to do so. So that's the first thing. It's an aha moment for people to understand that they actually need to read what's happening around them and adjust their life strategy accordingly. So that often helps a lot, just to understand that. But I think what helps the best, if you look at the scorecard, there's actually a formula in the scorecard saying, if we read the context as agile, this is your scorecard. Then there's a formula to say, if you challenge yourself on this one specific thing, it will get your transition going organically. Because I believe people can only do one stretch at a time, not 10 different things. We all try and do that in life. We decide now we're going to start do exercise, eat correctly, and journal at the same time. And none of us can usually do it. If you can do it for a little while. But if you understand this is the one thing, if I stretch myself on that, organically a few other things will happen. Let me give you an example. One of the leaders that I worked with, an excellent visionary, and he could take people with him, but he wasn't that good on connecting with people. Highly introverted, doing his own thing. Then he can pitch at a meeting and do a presentation very well and motivate people, but the one-on-one connection wasn't there. And once he understood that he actually need to make coffee dates with people, one by one, listening to them, understanding what's happening in there, only then it started happening. And he was amazed by what can actually happen if you really connect to people. It wasn't a window that was open to him. He thought it's okay just to continue and just tell people what to do and whatever. So that would be an example. And then you can go to the next step, but one step at a time, reading it from the scorecard. That is your challenge now, and help people into very concrete exercises around that. And then you take the next step. You do actually the same with the team. This is now your team behavior and your awareness at the moment. If you as a team wants to get aligned with this vision, you would need some more structure in this team, because this team don't have any structure, and it is a wonderful innovative people, but they're not aligned and they don't have a structure holding them. You need to either submit to structure or create structure to be able to get. And then you give the team a challenge. Before we meet again, you need to go and create some structure with this project. And Agile helps a lot, with all the structures and frameworks that they have. Yeah.
You make it sound pretty easy.
One step at a time.
Across the numerous agile transformations that we've been conducting over the years, we've seen the biggest barrier to success has really been at the people level, and that using the organic scorecard and the coaching process that Elsa shared with you, we've seen tremendous turnarounds and really getting to that alignment between strategy and execution. And the most exciting thing that I've seen that's come out of it is not the fact that we've met business outcomes or we've been able to achieve those business outcomes in a faster or more accelerated way than we might have done if we hadn't tackled the culture and the people. It's actually when you get the testimonials from the people themselves. So there are people where we've gone through this process from many years ago that are actually come back and knock on the door as an individual, even if they've moved on from the organization where we actually started the process with them. They come back and say, I want to see where I'm at now, and from my own personal growth perspective, what I still need to do. So that's the really rewarding part, is that although this is sponsored by an organization with a very specific intent, the byproduct is of great benefit to the individual. And we've seen tremendous human growth and development as a result of it. And that's really the rewarding part of the job.
Incredible.
Yeah, I must say that's very rewarding for me as well, that the growth is not only at work, but often people come back and say, my relationship at home, my kids benefited from me growing into a more authentic person, or whatever. Yeah, Carol, last week someone came here from our 2007 project. And he was asking me, are you still in practice? And I really just want to come and check in again. I'm at the crossroads in my life. Yeah, how many years are I?
Yeah, that was 2007. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, it's having a long-term effect on people. So it's this behavior that follows awareness is not only for now. I think once you have it, it's more sustainable to do it like that than just this little how-to recipes people do. That's also necessary, but it takes a lot of discipline. Often people said this thing, it sort of just clicked, something clicked in, and it wasn't such an effort. Once I understood that I need to think differently, the rest happened. Yeah.
I think Ryan and I might need to do an organic scorecard here.
You're welcome.
So for business leaders tuning in, what is the best first step to get started?
Yeah, by all means, you can reach out to me, Carol May at Altimetrik. My email is cmay@altimetrik.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. So would love to hear your thoughts, or if there's any engagement that you would like to kick off, we're certainly here and ready and able to help. Yeah.
Great. Any other thoughts to share before we sign off?
I think from my side is, please don't forget the people. It's the most important component of what we do. And if we're biased towards our process and technology and not our people, you're going to hit those challenges. So put the people first.
Yeah, and I think I would really want to honor the founders of the Agile movement. I think they were just so great in bringing the people component back and brought such a lot of joy and growth to a lot of people. And yeah, to myself, working with people in these settings. I think that's the last word for me.
Got it. Well, Carol May and Elsa, thank you all so much.
Oh, thank you.
Deep dive, and I know it gets deeper, so we definitely got your contact information. Oh, Elsa, did you give us your contact info? Unless you don't want to.
I think it goes through Altimetrik.
Yeah, I think use Carol and she will contact me. I think that's the best way to do this.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds great. Well, thank you all so much, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Please be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. And really, we're just excited to have you all here, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks a lot.